Alex Herr, welcome to the Bespoke Careers Employer Branding Playbook.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're stoked to have you here. For those of you who don't know Alex, he's the co founder of the EB Space, which is a community of employer branding specialists from all over the world. It's about bringing members together who are working in employer branding and sharing insights and growing together, elevating the employer branding space. So I haven't joined yet, but I mean I'm not in employer branding, but it's something that's really important to me. So maybe if I'm allowed, I might chuck a cheeky invitation request in there.
Yeah, so as long as you're a practitioner, it doesn't have to be in-house, it can be a consultant. There's always an opportunity there. But if you're not a member or not, a practitioner, there's always options where we can work with you in some shape or form.
Cool. Yeah, so this episode focuses on the role of employee advocacy within employer branding.
Hmm.
And I can't think of anyone better to be speaking about this subject with Alex. So, yeah, we're super lucky to have
Thanks.
you on. I'd say you're a trailblazer in the employer branding space. So, I'm really looking forward to hearing your insights.
You're far too kind there.
Maybe to start, we could just talk about your role at GoDaddy and what inspired you to launch the EB space.
Yeah. So here I head up the global employer brand. So there's any location where we have a business entity and we're hiring, that's going to fall under me and my team. And what inspired me to co-found the EB space with a good friend Claire D'Souza, who's actually based over there in my favorite city in the world, London, as well as yourself. We had worked together previously in a community called the Talent Brand Alliance. Yeah, I think our experiences and what we have, kind of lead us to where we are at the moment. And we had a great opportunity to work on the marketing committee and just good vibes, all around. And we thought, okay, this is good too, but like, let's there's something we can do on our own. And maybe if we can do something on our own, let's do something a little more global. More global. Let's get a platform where we could truly give people the option to connect. Let that naturally happen on its own, and then let's see where it takes us. So we settled on Discord. Discord, gosh, it's out there, it's known, but it's really an untapped resource that I think a lot of people don't consider. It's not just for gamers and streaming, but we dipped our toes into Discord, and we went from thinking, okay, if we get like 20 good friends to join us, I think that'd be good. We just hit the 600 member mark earlier this week,
Wow.
so I think we're doing okay. But we're trying our best. We'll see how this goes, and we're I would say in a good way, we're building the plane as it flies.
That's amazing. Yeah, I must say, in the last year, my eyes have been open to online communities. I've never really been a part of one, and then I joined one here in London. It's a bunch of recruitment marketers, and
Nice.
it's been game changing for me just having someone to bounce off. Because especially in recruitment marketing, and it might be the same with employer branding, you're often in really small teams. Sometimes
Hmm.
even you might be the only one in that team. So to
Pretty
have a
much.
community where you can just drop your thoughts in and get real time feedback, I'm sure that's extremely valuable for those 600.
I agree. Yeah, that not getting sold to. And there's definitely offline. I can share some with you. There's a lot of groups that I know I'm based here in the States, but I like to feel I'm a pretty global person. So I think there's other groups we can connect you with. So you have more outlets there in the UK.
That would be fantastic.
For
Um,
sure.
so, shall we start with a little bit about employer branding as a whole? How would you define it? I would say it's more of a buzzword these days than possibly in the past, but you've been involved with it for quite a few years now. So maybe we could talk about yeah, what it is and the rising importance of it.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's you have to dumb it down and make it easier for people because I it's easy to geek out about that. Well, maybe you could spend hours talking about it, and you'd either walk away impressed or confused. One of the two, right? But I think if you look at it this way, because your employer brand is your reputation. It's what people say about you when you're not in the room. We all talk about different companies and, hey, this company did this, did that. This is what's unique about them. It's your selling point, right? And I think what people forget is when you look at a product that we all use, like Apple. Apple just did a huge iPhone launch, and that is their product, right? They're simple. They wait till things are tested. They're known for that. That's very unique, and we know the products. We don't know much about the people, which would be their employer brand, but they're so we know more about their consumer brand, consumer product. And for us on the employer brand side of the house, it's us, it's the people, it's the culture, it's the opportunity, the growth, what makes, and then that's when you start going to tons of silos or different opportunities there where you have to define like what makes you different than the other company. You got taglines, you have boilerplates, but do you offer great internal mobility? Do you offer different ERGs, support benefits? There's so many different layers you can take it down or ways you can take it into, but that's what makes it unique about employer brand, and that's what I try to tell people, because when I say employer brand recruitment marketing, everyone gets confused. No one knows what it is, but probably a little more of a deeper definition that you want it there. But essentially, the people, the culture, that's what we have to, and then the opportunity we sell to people.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a really good definition. Have you seen much shift? How long have you been in employee branding for?
I've been in this game. I'm not in the rap space, but I've been in the game or the doing this for about 7 years.
7 years. Wow. So, would you say you've seen any shifts in that time? I think that these days, what we're hearing is the talent landscape's getting more and more competitive. So, are kind of employers
Yeah,
taking notice of the role of employer branding and paying more attention to it? And how's it evolved?
yeah, it's evolved tremendously because when I got into it, there are some legends in the space who have trailblazed long before I have that were doing it, but it was more of it's considered like HR marketing, digital marketing. Like my first position was actually digital marketing. There was nothing to the effect of employer brand specialist, talent brand consultant. You didn't have those titles back in 2017. That just wasn't there. And now you've seen okay, there's full teams that have been built out. There is a strong conversations around that where okay, it's not a fad anymore. It's something that people do want, they need. There's more in depth reporting that's out there. It's something where it's become a bigger topic to have, not just when the times are good, but also when the times are bad. And God knows we've had a couple of those with COVID shutdowns, lockdowns, and then major layoffs at the end of 22 and beginning of 23. So I think a lot has changed there, and it's become more of a definitely more of a must-have. And I think that's thrown around quite a bit. But I sincerely do think that you're always going to have changes to an industry, but I do think it's trending in the right direction. But there's still a long way to go. I'll never, lie to anybody. I say, okay, hey, it's 100% where it should be. I think that's if we get stagnant, that's kind of that would do more harm than good to us. But we're in a better spot than we were 7 years ago.
Yeah, I imagine you would say that employer brand deserves its own space and its own team in a business. But for smaller businesses, I mean, would you say it's kind of an HR thing or a marketing thing or a combination of the two? If a business leader was looking to implement some employer brand, where would they be looking to get that off the ground?
That's it's a loaded question there because it really depends on the person who's bringing them in, right? Because I think you could sit anywhere. I sincerely believe that because you got to work with everyone. If not, you're kind of dead on arrival essentially because you can't get any ideas, any of your great projects out there. But you typically see it happen in marketing or TA because you have someone who marketing and TA who are like, okay, well, I know we need someone who kind of helps us out because we're kind of like we're chameleons, right? We can go in, we have to know the marketing stuff, but then some of us have the ability to know how to recruit. We know how to we back end source before, and we know how to bring that together and then make it work. Where okay, we're targeting a different segment audience than folks on the product and consumer side. And then when it comes to recruitment, you have a head of TA typically who knows, all right, we need someone who's going to help us out and kind of share stories from the people who do the job, kind of sell them on joining whatever team we're hiring for based off location or whatever it may be. Because I don't have the time to do it. I know we need somebody, and it's a cool thing to be doing. So let's bring somebody in. So it typically happens that way. So I think that's how you get people in the door, and then eventually you have it evolve where, we roll into either operations teams, or that stay within TA, or just segment off in TA on our own. Either break into service centers, and then outside of marketing, you have to go where I think the latest trend has been going into internal comms. So that's an opportunity there. But I do think you will see EB teams like eventually move off and be on their own. I think that'll be a natural progression, and something we'll see probably sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, I agree. Um, you touched on it a little bit there, but I think there's really two arms to it, and at least in the way I see it, you've got the talent attraction and the talent retention piece. How do you see those two things being balanced, and how do you work that?
So another fun question there, right? Because I think we like to think, for the longest time, I was a firm believer that we're part of definitely attraction, but that there's retention as well. I think it's very subjective, right? It's based on the company you work for. So if your company gives you the opportunity where, okay, they know the can experience is not just at at the front end when you bring them in, but at the end in terms of how they when people do offboard or offboard at that point, they're kind of on the edge there if they're going to stay or not. If you play a part in that, then yeah, I think we definitely do factor into whether someone is retained or not. But for the most part, if we're simply just doing everything that's top of funnel to keep you to, make you go from passive to active job seeker, and after that we don't do anything else. I don't think that me featuring you in a blog, or taking you to an event is going to make you stay with company A versus maybe going to Apple or Google for an amazing salary. You're not going to say, okay, if you give me £100,000 to go here, or I'll pay you £75,000 here, but I'll feature you with more videos. You're probably going to go after the 100,000. That's a smart decision to be making.
What are some of the kind of standout ways? And again, it's probably going to be a little bit of a bloated question, but I'm new to this. What are some of the standout ways
Don't
that
worry.
an architecture or design firm or any sort of business leader can look to implement their employer brand? What's some tactics that you'd recommend just to start with?
Oh, I think there's tons, because I think we like to make this more complicated than it should be. But I think the great James Ellis has said it best himself that once you hire, you already have an employer brand, right? Just like if you have a product, you have a consumer brand, you got to sell to somebody. Once you're hiring, you have jobs there, you know what you're trying to do, you're trying to bring somebody in. That's your employer brand. So right away, you always need a careers page. You need an ATS, whether you're doing one that's homegrown on your own. So there's ways to brand that there. You brand the career page, you brand the job description that's part of that. Eventually, someone is going to share something inadvertently on their own that they say, okay, hey, I'll share this post about maybe the startup and the 5 positions I need on LinkedIn. That's a form of advocacy right there, right? And advocacy is a tactic of employer branding. So you're doing that already on your own. And then, hey, on top of that, why don't you actually create some social platforms, channels for your company? And if you start mixing the consumer portion with the jobs, well, you already have another quick win there, because that's your employer brand. And then eventually from there, the simplest way is then creating a blog. Once you can get that, that's a little more more mature than entry level, but those are already a lot of quick wins that people try to make more difficult than they should be. But it's really, in my opinion, and I yeah, I can say I'm very biased because I've been doing this for many years, but those are quick things you can do over, gosh, probably 180 days, and you'll be in a much better position than when you first started.
Great. Yeah. So this episode focuses on employee advocacy, rather. Um, and so, yeah, I want to get a little bit into that. I think when we think of branding, we often think of marketing, but yeah,
Mhm.
it's the employees themselves are who are often the best advocates. So maybe tell me a little bit about employee advocacy and what that means to you.
It's huge. It's a big part of what I do in employer branding, and essentially, you are just you're utilizing your number one asset and tool, which is your people. Because a lot of times we focus too much just on the customers, and okay, yes, yeah, we do want to make money, right? But when it comes down to things, people want to listen and hear from people who talk and look like them, but also who would be potential teammates of theirs. So, if I'm pushing out pushing out jobs on LinkedIn, and apologies because I have LinkedIn open here on the side, so my mind's going that way. But I'm thinking that's going to work, and like that's not the right approach. Like people will naturally apply to your jobs, but then the true people who you want, who are the passive job seekers, will listen to, let's say, you and I if we're posting something. But advocacy is just simply, in my opinion, it's a way of just enabling our teammates, our best advocates out there, to share different content that we've created or we curated for them, and then helping them to get that out there and amplify that.
Yeah, I think I mean I've experienced this firsthand working at Bespoke. We talk a lot about personal branding as well, and it's a key tool for any recruiter is their personal brand. But it's getting the
Hmm.
employees to actually start posting that can be difficult at times. Some
Agreed.
love it, and others don't. But getting employees to feel comfortable sharing their experiences, I think, is something that's a challenge. So what steps can companies take to naturally encourage them to get out there and advocate?
Well, you hit on one thing. Like whenever I build out a program at a company, the person I think you got to sell what the opportunity is for them, right? Because there's some, you got to have some skin in the game, and it has to benefit them as well. But building out their personal brand, because you may come across a couple of people who are really good at that, others who they don't know where to start, and it's not that they don't want to, they don't have the confidence. They're not natural content creators. So I sell them on the fact that, okay, hey, one, I'm going to help you build your personal brand. You're scared to do that, you just don't know where to start. I'll help you with that. We'll give you content that is something that is based on the industry that you're in, also for the company that we're working for. It will help you be seen as a thought leader if that's what you want to do. But we'll build it out from there. But also we're going to gamify things. So depending on what's available, if you have an internal point system, let's go with that. We'll reward you for, the most shares, but also not just limited to that, the most engagement. So, you're getting some sort of benefit out of that, and we'll get if it's points, great. If you can, hey, let's give you an Amazon gift card, or let's give you Starbucks gift card. And it could be it's very small, like something like 10 or 20 pounds. But having that and winning that, and just when it's ongoing competition with your teammates too, if you run some sort of leaderboard system, people love that. It's a very small thing you can do. And I would say the ROI from that is tremendous. Like I don't see why more companies are not doing that, but it's a very difficult thing to do.
100%, I agree, and especially in the recruitment space, we're a very
Hmm.
competitive bunch, so that kind of thing goes really well. All you need to do is put a
Agreed.
leaderboard and an incentive out there, and yeah, people will do whatever you say.
True.
But there is, yeah, I think you touched on something there. That there is always a question of authenticity in this, and I think people
Hmm.
more so now than any time before can tell when someone's being genuine, or when they're just doing it because they have to, or they're using ChatGPT or any of these other things. So how can you
Yeah.
make sure that this employee advocacy is something that's real and genuine rather than some kind of corporate obligation?
Yeah, so one, it should be an obligation, right? It should be open to them if they want to join. If you're forcing people to do it, I don't. I agree with you. It is not authentic at all. But I think where you're programmed to the point where initially, you're creating the messages for them because they don't know how to create that and they're just not comfortable. But I think there's also a level of maturity that has to happen. A few months into the program, maybe a year into it, where you say, okay, hey, listen, this is so we've shown you here, we've basically given you the playbook to go out there and be advocates. Okay, outside of us sharing this message with you, like, what do you want to put out there? Like, you don't have to share exactly what we have there. If you just want the tracking link and you come up with the hashtags on your own, you have a message that you can wordsmith and make it sound like it's coming from you. I encourage you to do that. That's definitely what I encourage. Once we get a little more mature with any of the programs that I've built, because then it sounds like you, and your audience is going to know that eventually, right? Because if they see, you and I put out the same messages as 200 other teammates, it's pretty obvious. We're writing everything, we're ghostwriting for them, and it's not authentic. But I think that's the one thing that does have to happen. And then outside of that, there has to be like just like how there's hackathons at in the engineering space, or opportunities for people to pitch their ideas, you have to let your people who are actively participating, because after they've shared so much, they've earned so many points or gift cards from the programs you're offering for the advocacy. Give them the option to share their ideas. Like maybe they say, okay, hey, let's. It's great we're sharing about jobs. So why don't we focus on like locational pieces over here, or talk about the different projects that we're working on. Let them be a part of that process, and I think you'll get some unique things that it'll make your program that much better by doing so.
Yeah. I I think there's a fine line here somewhere between personal branding and employee advocacy. And just to help me try and
Mhm.
understand it a bit better, could we talk maybe about some of the posts, the content that you've seen work really well, maybe some real life examples when it comes to employee advocacy online?
Definitely not the selfies that people like to put out on LinkedIn, where they have a selfie of them doing something that is nothing related to what their what the call to action is. I can't stand that. It's my biggest pet peeve over the last year. But the ones that I have seen work best is where it's not simply, "Hey, we're hiring, join us. We're an amazing company, greatest, great company of 2024," something like that. That doesn't work for people. What I find that works best is when they're sharing a story that is maybe of a fellow teammate. Like one of the things that we're big on over here is we try to really dive into the stories of teammates who maybe who are engineers, sales folks, and not just their day to day job. Like what's their story? What brought them here? But also what are they doing outside of work? How are we enabling them to do that? Because that's more realistic. That it resonates with our audience, but also the audiences or connections of our teammates that are also advocates, because they want to hear that stuff. Like that's not going to yield, and I think that's the tough part too. It's not going to it's not necessarily like a bottom of funnel type of approach. It's more top of funnel, because people are going to see that and eventually they'll read that, they'll go through it. They won't take action right away, but maybe after seeing a lot of different content like that, they'll be inspired to say, okay, I've read so much about this. I love how company A is supporting this person over here. And maybe it's time for me to do something about this, because I don't like where I'm at. And I think this is an opportunity for me to do something different. But I feel that's worked out better for us. Like we'll that and just, be intentional with the job postings that you do have that go through that program. I think it's a good option. It's definitely a good option because it shows the impact of your brand. But if 99% of what you share is, hey, we're hiring again, those same messages, you're going to lose your audience, and it's not going to work, right? It's very similar to just organic content creation, or if we were to watch, I would say we watch our different shows that we would like to watch on Netflix or Hulu, BBC, whatever it may be. If they're using the same plot line every single time and the stories never change, you're going to tune them out. It's the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. I think, yeah, we've talked a lot about social media, and we touched a little bit on careers pages and website as well. In terms of an employee advocacy program, what would you say are sort of the main pillars that make that up?
Just to make the program work effectively.
Just the different things that someone should consider when they're trying to build a employee advocacy program. So obviously there's the social media piece. You've got your website there as well. What other
Mhm.
things should we be implementing? Obviously, there's in-person events and networking. Does that come into it a lot?
It does now, probably more than before, or actually more than the last 2 years, right? Because now we can be back in person. But I think definitely the content strategy that you have, because you need a good mix. I would say like 5 or 6 different type of pieces of content, topics that you can dive into. But also, again, where are you driving people back to? Are you tracking links? But I think most importantly, before going out and like buying a tool, is get the structure down and the pillars like you mentioned. But having that down and like know what you're gearing towards. Like, are you just simply doing this because it's a cool thing that you saw on LinkedIn or Facebook, or are you really driving people towards something, right? Have everything built out. Okay, how are you going to reward people? Content, as we talked about before too. Decide which platforms you're going to use, because while it may be cool to share everything out on LinkedIn, Twitter/X, Threads, and TikTok, I don't think your family, your family or friends don't want this on Facebook or Instagram, right? So it's probably not the best avenue. So determine the channel strategy, and then also internally, okay, what from there, what can happen next, right? Is this going to result in something where somebody can actually get a referral bonus from this? Can we track that to see, okay, are they sending us good quality candidates? There's got to be, try to get most of that baked out on the back end. And that way, just like if we were to design a web page, you got a wireframe there, right? Because if we're going in there and we're just, simply just drag and dropping stuff, it's going to be a pretty messy page. But if you have a wireframe built out there, and like here, how we're talking about the advocacy program, you got everything, built out and developed. Well, not fully developed clearly, but then you have more of a game plan. I think you're in a better position to succeed, but you need that before you do anything else.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I think as well, one thing that we notice that works really well is you need to lead by example. You can't be asking your employees to do this, that, and the
Exactly.
other if your senior leaders aren't doing it themselves. So yeah, I mean that would probably be my biggest bit of advice to any architects, senior architect designers out there is do it yourself, and then you kind of understand how difficult it can be as well, because there are some serious challenges there.
There are, yeah, that's true. That's a really good point. Definitely something that I failed to point out earlier, but I think having your leaders involved goes a long way because if not, it's you got individual contributors who are sharing stuff, but I've yet to see it backfire honestly when you can get somebody who is either the hiring manager who is part of these different teams that want to hire or directors or hey if you can even get folks who are VPs or the C-suite level get them involved because they it speaks volumes that a leader of a company in some shape or form would be willing to share that because to your point they'll know hey listen it's not that simple it's not magic where you just write something you share a photo or video and applicants are just knocking on that virtual door to join you there's a lot of work that does go into and a lot of strategy as well.
Yeah, and I think senior leaders can often take the view that creating content and writing LinkedIn posts is not their job, so that they might be tempted to outsource it to a ghostwriter or something like that, which you can do. But I think really what they need to be doing is rolling up their sleeves and applying a little bit of elbow grease and actually just doing it themselves and kind of getting stuck in the weeds with it because it's so important and it actually does move the needle. It's something that moves the needle for sure.
I love that. No, that's a really good point. Because you could farm it out. People can see right through that. I think if you actually do the work yourself, you understand that it's not as simple.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of founders I follow on LinkedIn. They started a business called Hockey Stack, and they're growing extremely rapidly. And they're just every day out there posting really high value content for their users and audience. They hire incredibly well. They've got an incredibly talented team, and they cite that their organic LinkedIn posting is about 75% of their revenue and responsible for their growth. So they said
Oh wow,
yeah, there's no other way to do it than doing it yourself, and you just got to do it. You got to get stuck in.
you do, you do.
It's those first post nerves sometimes, and it maybe only gets 2 or 3 likes or something like that, and you go, I give up. I'm never doing this again. But it's all about consistency, applying yourself, and making sure that the content is what people want to read.
Oh, I hear you. Gosh, when I first joined LinkedIn, it was a struggle to get any likes, any impressions. I think I had like 150 connections at the time and the goal was 300 so upwards in the several thousands now but like it takes time and it's never going to happen overnight or with that one post or that one reshare like you got to put the time and effort into it.
Yeah, you absolutely do. If we switch gears for a second, I'm really interested in
Sure.
AI and how that's impacting the workforce. But what have you seen AI in terms of how it's impacting employee advocacy and employee branding in general?
I think it could make it like so when you're outside of the content that you're sharing, like the work behind the scenes in the lab, whatever you want to call that, when you're designing these images, it helps out. Like if you can go to Canva and okay, not everybody has amazing Photoshop skills, right? That's the honest truth. So if you can go into Canva and use their magic AI to maybe remove some spots on the image that you're designing or person from a photo, so everything works out that saves you gosh hours by doing that so that'll help you out there now when it comes to your messaging and creating all that hey if I can look at something and I can look at something and then AI can help make it a little more succinct. With whatever your choice of AI is, then that's going to help you out because when we're creating the messages, you're going through everything and trying to make it make it sound like it's coming from that person, or in the tone of voice of whatever company you're working at. And it can be difficult, right? Because you could sit there spending 30 minutes thinking, okay, hey, let's go from here, let's talk about like what's my intro, what's the midpoint, what's the selling point, hashtags, and all that good stuff. But if you can have, like Grammarly is probably the best tool that no one talks about in terms of their content creation, where it'll help you. Like if I want to localize the English that I'm using from the US to the UK, that's a big game changer. Like I know there's a difference when there should be an S versus a Z or a Z, but maybe others don't. And then also, okay, should you have a comma there? Should you not? Small little things like that go a long way in helping helping us just create the different content that we push out there.
Yeah, for sure. And flowing on from that, the role of AI, is there anything else that you notice on in terms of just the future of employer branding, employee advocacy? Where do you think we're going? You've talked a little bit about it going in-house, but what else can you tell us about the future?
I think you're gonna see a lot of tasks that used to take a very long time get automated, and for very good reasons, right? Like there's, typically if you were to go out there and consult and audit for a company, you would have to go through a very long process of auditing a company, right? Auditing them, and then competitive research. That's something that you can accomplish rather quickly, with the right prompts and your AI tool of choice, generative AI specifically. So I think that can help you out. Creating graphics depending on what you're able to do. If you want to go the route of going with generic stock images, more power to you. That can be accomplished rather quickly. But if you go with your own in-house type of photos or videos, you can still do that. Slicing and dicing videos for stories or TikTok, it's a rather quick process versus before. I mean, that's something that used to take, gosh, I would say, easy for one video, slicing and dicing, adding everything you need, an hour or two. And now you can do that in a matter of minutes. So I just think there's a lot of efficiencies that can be gained by leveraging AI. Now, I don't think it's not the end all be all, right? Like I think there's got to be a lot of of responsible approaches behind that, not overusing that and just going with whatever it spits out to you. You still have to manage everything and Q&A, make sure it's what you want, what it should be, but I think there are a lot of efficiencies that we can get from it.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so just to conclude, in the efforts of making these short episodes nice and actionable for our watchers or listeners, and what's something that a senior level or HR professional in the architecture and design space could do today to improve their employer brand and employee advocacy programs tomorrow?
Um, Look at the small, quick wins. Just do a quick look at, what your team is currently sharing at the moment. What I typically do is an audit of any company if I were to work with them on any level. Just see what you're putting out there. Are you even doing anything that speaks to your employer brand? I think you'll find out in under 30 minutes if you are really leveraging your employer brand, or if you just not doing much with it at all, and that'll give you enough to work with.
Alex Hare, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure there's so many things in there that people can pull from. That was a really insightful conversation. I really enjoyed it. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.